So we're going to start on our backs, but we're going to start with a neck roll. So grab your blanket.
You get to reset.
And you're going to roll it up to a little bit bigger than what we would use for our belly bolster. So maybe something like this. So it's going to be big enough to fill in the curve of your cervical spine, the curve of your neck, and also kind of hold the head up off the ground a bit, right at the base of the skull. Put your arms wherever feels comfortable, but have your knees bent, feet on the floor. And position the feet in a way where your hips don't have to do much to keep your legs where they are. So where could you put your feet so that your thigh and your hip muscles can relax? And because we're all put together a bit differently, that might be different for all of us. Some of you might need to walk the feet out a little further from your hips. Some of you might need feet wide, knees in. Feel the weight of your skull. Feel the back of your skull. And zero in on that spot where the base of the skull and the neck meet. Can you drop that into the blanket? And could you imagine all of the contents of your skull pooling into that spot, right at the base? Brain drops back, all the connective tissue around your brain sinks back. And then walk your attention down your spine into your pelvis. So you could just crawl in there. And feel the weight of your pelvis. Zero in on your sacrum. So that's the bone connecting the two pelvic bones above the tailbone, between the back of the hips. And could you imagine the weight of the pelvis and the contents of the pelvis could pull back into your sacrum. And your sacrum is shaped like a little bowl, concave shape, about the size of your hand. You picture your hand kind of holding that curvature at the place between the back of your hips. That's where our attention is going to settle. If you feel the base of the skull and the sacrum, and let them both drop back at once. You can keep the knees bent, or you could extend the legs out. Keeping the attention on base of skull, on sacrum. And you start to spread your attention out so that really you're feeling into all of the parts of the body that are resting. And how does it feel to turn your attention to where the floor holds you? Letting all of your weight settle into the backside of the body. And then imagine the backside of the body could start to pull out. Like your whole body is a baking cookie spreading out on the pan. Like you have a shadow moving in all directions. And the front side of your body is just able to soften and drop back into the support of the back side of your body. Almost like the front side of the body could just kind of snuggle into inside of the lining of your back. Back sides of the arms spread like wings. From this place, kind of snuggled into your own support, if there's an intention or a dedication that you'd like to set for practice. And then pull the knees into the chest, give them a squeeze, give them a hug. Extend the legs up towards the ceiling, just shake them out. There's no right way to do this, just shake them out. Have your strap within reach. We're gonna hug the knees back in. And we'll keep a hold of the right knee, but we'll take the left leg up. And we'll just circle the left ankle. And we'll find a wave-like motion with that left foot. So flex the ankle, bring the toes close to the front of the shins as you can, and then slowly unfurl and curl the toes. And then keep the toes curled, flexing the ankle, unfurl the toes, and then we'll just continue through a couple of those waves. And I'm getting some crackles, some popping in the joints of my feet. Spreading the toes wide. And then we're going to strap up the left foot. If you can reach the toe, you can grab the toe. Take your right leg up and then extend it out in front of you nice and long. Feel the left side of the sacrum grounded on the floor. So that left SI joint, so the sacroiliac joint that connects the pelvic bone with the sacrum, is grounded. And you can almost press that joint down into the floor as you try to slide the leg up away from it. And the more you kind of root down through that side, the easier it might be to lengthen your left leg. Press the right side of the sacrum down. And then slide that right leg further forward. And then tune back into the pulling out of the back side of your body. And we'll take the left leg off to the left. Notice when the right side of the sacrum starts to kind of uproot, and see if you can set it back down. You take your right arm out to the right. Feel the backs of the arms spread wide. And imagine they could pull your back wider as well. Put a little bend in that left knee to bring it back through center, and we'll take it off to the right, all the way to the right. So it's going to come all the way to the floor. So your hips will turn. And then for a moment, feel back into your right leg. Reach it long in front of you. Can you let the base of the skull be held by the blanket again? And then left arm will reach out left. And the back side of the body spreads wide. Left leg's reaching long, pushing into the strap. And then you can let go of the work of the left leg. You might even bend the left leg a little bit. It might be possible to bend your right knee and reach down for your right foot. You could use your strap for this if you can't reach the foot. And then keeping the foot kind of level with the knee, so you're not taking the foot up towards the ceiling, so it's moving right along the ground. You bring it towards the back of that right hip. So when we're in a lunge and we're trying to do that quad stretch, it can be a lot to try to manage the pressure on the knee and the balance of the lunge. So this could be a nice way to find that little stretch. And then we'll release that. Bring everything back to center. Pause in constructive rest. Let everything drop back. After so much time, watching the news, being so glued to the phone, it's almost like a little retreat to be able to drop into the backside of the body. And then we'll hug the knees. Keeping hold of the left knee and the right leg up, and we'll just roll that right ankle around. Wave out the bones of the foot. Strap up that right foot. Your left leg will reach up and forward nice and long. Feeling down into the sacrum, nice and grounded through both sides. Feel how the further you sink down into that right side of the sacrum, the more you can let that right leg rise up. And the weight of the left side of the sacrum keeps the right balance as you take that right leg out to the right. And you drop the brain into the back of the skull. And then bringing the right leg back up and all the way over to the left. Turning the hips. You can reestablish the length from your left foot up through the head, and then again, let the blanket hold the base of the skull. Reaching the arms wide. Let that right leg rest as you reach down for your left foot. So maybe you can take your left foot into a quad stretch. It's too much of a struggle to skip it. So easy for the physical yoga practice to become just like another thing that we want to control. We want to just boss our bodies around into all these different shapes. it seems like for real change to happen, you can release that left foot. It needs to be more of a conversation. It needs to be less one-sided, less your brain trying to just tell your body what to do, and more of a practice of listening, just taking a moment in your constructive breaths. And we'll take feet as wide as the mat, toes turned slightly out. Bring your hands right up to the top of your thigh bones, right below the crease of your hips. And you're going to press forward, creating a little bit of traction. And you can feel the tops of all those really big, strong muscles of your thighs. Keeping the position of your hands fixed, could you imagine all of that tissue, maybe even the top of your thigh bone, could soften away from your hands? And if this has tipped your sacrum forward, so the top of your sacrum is off the floor quite a bit, could you slowly sink it back down? And then release, let the knees drop to the left. Maybe step your left foot on top of the right thigh. And I want you to imagine just a slow inner spiral on that right thigh bone, slowly corkscrewing that right thigh towards the front left corner of your mat. And as you imagine that spiral, how does that feel in your hip? How does that feel in low belly? What about your back? Bring the knees back through center. To the other side, same thing. Step the right foot on top of the left thigh, and then just like slow spiral, inner spiral. So like your inner thighs rolling underneath you. As your leg kind of works its way towards the front right corner of your mat. And then unwind. Drop the attention back. And then hug the knees. Roll over to either side, come up to a seat. It's nice to see you guys. So sit up on a blanket if you need to. If it feels like it's a struggle just to stay upright and it's bothering the fronts of your hips or your low back. And then we're going to set up our seat in a way that I've been practicing with Angela Farmer and see how it goes. So you're going to take your left thigh and you're just going to do kind of the opposite of the spiral that we were just doing on our backs. So you're going to externally rotate a little bit and think about kind of dragging that thigh bone out of the hip. Might not go very far. And then keep your left hand on the thigh and just give it a little pressure as you drag the spine in the other direction. And as we did with the hands at the tops of the thighs, could you imagine all of the tissue under your hands and the top of that thigh bone kind of falling away from your hands? So rather than trying to do something with your hand is just fixing the leg in place, and then there's an undoing underneath. Helps release the thigh bone from the hip. And then come back up to a seat and just notice your breath. Notice your breath in your nostrils. And then we'll do the other side. So little external rotation, move your cat's tail out of the way if you need to. A little external rotation, and then imagine you could drag that right thigh bone out of the hip. And just using that right hand, we're not really actively pushing down, but you're just giving a little bit of pressure to something that you can release away from. And then feel in, could that leg fall away from the pressure of your hand? Back upright and notice the breath in your nose. All right, so we have our pelvic bones. You can feel the top bones of the pelvis here, the top of the iliac crests, right? While we're upright, your sacrum is just here. So it's in between the bones of the pelvic bones above your tailbone. It's about the size of my hands. And then the bottom bones of the pelvis are your sit bones. So we're going to reach down and find the left one. And go ahead and curl your fingertips, if you can, right up the inner edge of that left sit bone. So you just feel the inner edge of the sit bone, bottom of the pelvis here. And then could you imagine dragging that bone out and slightly back? And again, it might not go very far. Move the flesh with you. And then release it down. And notice the breath in your nose. Notice your connection to the floor. And then we'll do the other side. So you're going to reach down, find your right sit bone. Curl the fingers right up through the inner edge there. And then drag it back and out. And moving at a diagonal behind you. Flesh with you. And then notice how it feels. Notice your breath. And you're very aware of where your sit bones are. Good sense of their weight, their shape. Could you imagine, go to the left side first, could you imagine dropping a root, growing a root down from the inner edge of your left sit bone, burrowing deep down into the earth below you, and then angling slightly back, and anchor it somewhere way below you and slightly back behind you. Notice the breath. And then we'll do the same on the right side. Borrow a root down from the inner edge of your right sit bone, below your mat, below your floor, all the way into the earth. As deep as the one on the left side. And then slightly back, rooting down and back. And notice the breath. You feel both roots at once. And then, do both at the same time. I want you to imagine you could drop a pair of roots, to grow a pair of roots down from your outer sit bones, burrowing deep down into the earth. And then they're going to root in towards each other. And then root down from the back side, back edge of your sit bones. Almost imagine those roots finding their way through the dirt, past the rocks. And mingling into the roots of other things. And then those roots are going to drop down and then go slightly forward. Notice how that feels up the back side of the body as you grow those roots. Does that stability give the base of your skull any freedom to float up? Do those roots give the backside of your body any more freedom to get bigger and to get wider? Can you imagine your backside kind of looming over you like a big protective shadow? Okay. And then drop a set of roots down from the front edges of your sit bones. Burrowing down. And then they're going to angle slightly back. From that stability, could the front side of your body now fill up and soften into the back side of your body? You feel all of your roots at once. And so we're all going to feel a little bit differently from this work, but I know that I feel very stable, very safe. And there's a freedom in my breath. It doesn't require much effort. We're going to turn to the left. And as we turn to the left, keep some attention on the roots of your left sit bone. Those burrowing down. Feel how we're opening up the chest as we turn into the twist, but we're not closing off the back to open up the front. So you still feel the back side of the body spreading nice and wide. From that stable anchor in your left sit bone. You could stay here working this upward twist, or you could walk the hands out to the left. Maybe that right elbow can drop down a bit. And then if you're kind of folding forward to the left here, can that left sit bone, can that right sit bone root down and feel even more anchored through the outer root. So the root that's running down the outside of that right sit bone into the floor and then slightly in the direction of your twist. From that stability, can the front side of your body kind of crawl up and lengthen forward? And then we'll come back to center. And notice the breath. And then we'll turn the other way. Since I misspoke the first side, I want you to root down into the sit bone that you're turning away from. Feel all of those roots drop down. So that the spiraling doesn't pull you up out of that sit bone. The back side of the body spread out and rise up. And then maybe start to draw the hands off. Right. Maybe that left elbow can bend down any amount. I'm going to re-anchor through the sit bone that you're turning away from. Yeah. And rather than letting that kind of pull you away from the direction that you're going actually helps give you the stability, especially if you feel for rooting down through the outer sit bone and feeling those roots dive down and then kind of underneath you in the direction that you're twisting. Gives you the stability to actually let you unfurl more. Feel all of that length kind of spiral up out of your left side. And then the front side of the body can just naturally extend forward, filling up into all the space that you found through the left side. Thank you. Sorry, guys. No, man. And as you feel into that root, it helps you lift up nice and easily to come back through center. Just notice how you feel. So this work is all stuff that I've learned from Angela, and feels so good. And the nice thing is you can do it anywhere. Go ahead and grab your left foot. We're just going to start to massage out the bottom of your left foot. So if you're sitting at work and you're starting to feel a little bit like blah, or your back hurts or your neck hurts, just imagine those roots growing down underneath you, and it changes the whole thing. Changes. Did you guys notice a change in your breath? Yeah. So easy all of a sudden. So we're just massaging out the bottom of the foot, the whole bottom of the foot. Let no area be untouched. And you can massage out all the toes. You kind of pull on the toes a little bit, give them a little twist. So the nice thing I was noticing, and maybe you guys felt this too, is in all that work that we just did, you don't have to put any effort into lengthening out the breath. It just slows itself down and gets so nice and long in a way that it's just like it's the undoing. It's the undoing of the tension. Massage out the top of the foot. Tension that you're holding when your roots aren't set and stable. All of these other muscles that don't need to be supporting you will engage to try to help to maintain that support. And a lot of those muscles are tied into, you know, your rib cage, your spine, areas that, if held really tight, can really affect your ability to breathe. And so without having to like just go in and try to stretch all those places and open up through the rib cage, through the spine, just setting those roots down, things start to kind of naturally happen. How's your foot feel? Get right into that spot where the heel and the arch come together. This is right below your talus bone, which is like call it the keystone bone of the foot. It's the place that's holding your whole body weight up when you're standing. It's where your tibia, your main shin bone, comes down. And then we're gonna wedge the fingers in between the toes and see if you can give them a little wiggle. She's using the wiggling of my fingers just to get pet. And then you can kind of circle out foot. Circle out the ankle. Let the ankle be moved by the hand rather than the ankle trying to do it. And then you can release, and we'll just take a couple of the waves of the foot. So if this wasn't making sense upside down when we were on our backs, you're just gonna flex at the ankles, see if you can bring the toes back towards the front of the shin as best you can. And then we're just gonna slowly unfurl that. The heel will drop down, and then the toes will curl. And then we'll keep the toes curled as we start to open it up again. Spreading through the toes. I'm just going to go in between those two times. Let that go and just see how your feet feel. Mine are two different colors. And then we'll do the other side. So just grabbing onto your right foot, give it a little massage. You can get all the cobwebs out in between the long bones of the foot. Kind of spread the bottom of the foot open like you're opening up a book. Some love to all the toes. Getting into that spot where the heel and the arch come together. Get into the top of the foot. Curving out a little path in between the bones. Give a little pull to all the toes. Give some twists if you haven't done that already. And then we'll fingers in between the toes. Give them a little wiggle. I find this to be very unpleasant. Forth. Some circles. The ankle. Check out the waves and see if they've changed. If you're having a hard time with this, one of the ways you can kind of trick your feet into moving more than they're ready to is to just move your hands in the same way, and they just kind of learn it. Like I don't know what it is, just tricks your brain like, oh yeah, okay, I know how to do this here, so now maybe I can do it here. It actually feels pretty good on my hands too. All right, I think we're ready to stand up. Stand up, try not to use your hands. Now feel your feet. Do they feel wide awake? And some partial waves of the feet, kind of lifting and dropping through the heels. And the toes spread out. And then feet under the sit bones that you know so intimately now. If you're hyper flexible, you're working to not lock out your knees. We're not bending the knees either. Legs are just straight. And we're going to grow same kind of roots that we grew from our sit bones from the heels. So feeling from the inner heels that you could root down. And then slightly out and back behind you. From the outer heels, you could root down. And then in towards each other. The fronts of the heels can drop back, drop down and then slightly back. And then you can sink the roots from the backs of the heels down and slightly forward. And maybe that gives the whole backside of the body the freedom to rise up a bit. The base of the skull can float up without much effort. And then just for good measure, where we interwove our fingers and our toes, like right from that little spot in between all of your toes, just drop down roots. It's like you're Spider-Man, just kind of like shooting them down and out and forward, kind of reaching in all directions. Feel nice and stable. From that stability, we'll just start to find a wave pattern through the spine. So I want you to imagine that your sacrum could tip forward more and kind of wave that back bend up your spine, and then the sacrum tips back and brings the flexion up your spine. And just go in between those two as slowly as you like, letting the head join in. Get a little side to side action as well. And then find neutral. Take the left arm up. Reach up and hold on to the left wrist. Side bend a bit. And as we did in our seat, you're going to root down from the heel that you're bending away from. If you imagine that outer root dropping down and then in the direction that you're bending. Stand up. Arms down. Notice your breath. And arms up. You hold your right wrist. The stability through the roots on your right side and in the side bend. I find that I get to a certain point where it feels like I'm not as stable, I'm not in control. And so if I drop that outer root down and imagine it burrowing underneath me in the direction that I'm bending, it gives me a whole lot more freedom. Come back up to stand. Inhale, both arms up. Exhale, chair pose. Inhale, low chair. Arms are going to reach down, reach forward as your hips sink down. And then exhale, fingertips come down. Hips stay low. We're going to push the floor and slide the chest up. And then exhale, fold down. Can you feel into the roots here in your fold? Can you put some attention into the roots dropping out of the back of the heels? And does that allow the back side of the body to release more? And as the back side of the body releases, and it grows bigger, you could almost feel like it shields the front side of the body. It protects it like a like a big shell so that I can just kind of soften and drop forward as well. And then we'll reverse out of this. Take a breath in. You're going to exhale and bend the knees, lower the hips. Thighs will come parallel to the floor. Push the floor, inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, reach the arms forward. Just hold here for a moment, because if you imagine the roots coming out of your sit bones back behind you, like you could anchor into the wall, it might make your arms a lot lighter. It might make your spine a lot lighter. So can you feel that? And then inhale, chair pose. And then exhale, stand. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, chair. Inhale, low chair. Exhale, hands down. Inhale, lift the chest up. And exhale, fold. Breathe in. Breathe out. Inhale. Exhale, lower the hips. Move around like this. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, arms forward. Feel your anchors behind you. Inhale, chair. And exhale, stand. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, chair. Inhale, low chair. Exhale, hands down. Inhale, lift the chest up. And exhale, fold. Breathe in. Breathe out. Inhale. Exhale. And then wherever you are, you're at the back of your mat, walk your hands forward or walk your feet back. Come into downward facing dog. You can sprout roots from the webbing of your fingers. And from those roots, the hips rise up and back. Feel the top of your thighs where you softened away from your hands way back in the beginning of practice. And you let that soften up and back here. Feel the roots of your feet, heels. And even if your heels aren't touching the ground, can you imagine that your roots could, a mangrove tree, root down, and then from that stability, the sit bones rise up. You keep all that, take your right leg up. And so you're so firmly rooted in the base of the pose here that you can have some freedom with that right leg. So what feels good here? Maybe some hip circles, maybe the knee bends and opens, maybe the leg stays straight. And then bring the knee into the chest. Come forward into your plank. So plank with knee to chest. Your hands are pushing the floor away. Yep, nope, your foot's still lifted. Knee into the chest. We're just holding here, just hanging out. Yep, you have all those roots sprouting from the webbing of your fingers. Your belly's lifting to help keep your hips up. And your sit bones are going to drop into the back of your upper thighs a bit. Can you feel that? Like you're trying to hide the bottom of your butt. Yeah. Even though it's awesome, your butt's awesome, but you're just going to try to hide it just a little bit. And then we're going to step the foot in between the hands. Drop your back heel. Feel the roots of your back heel before you even start to move. Especially that outer edge. Feel the roots of your front foot. And then we'll stand up. Warrior one. And those roots are so stable, the arms can float high. The spine is free. You almost feel like a little bit of freedom to find some waves in the spine here. And then we're going to keep the anchor through those left roots. Side bend a little to the right. And then we're going to take the left elbow outside the right thigh. Now, if you can't find the outside of the thigh, you can rest with the forearm on the thigh, no problem. You hang out right here. You might use your right hand to help bring the elbow outside the thigh. And then just pause. Can you feel your roots? Maybe from here, you bring your palms together and you open up into a little bit of a twist. Maybe the left arm comes down and the right arm comes up. I want you to feel as we hold this twist that the back side of your body can still spread wide. Yes, that's it, Kate. And that the spreading and the opening of the back side of the body gives the front side of the body the safety that it needs to be able to open up. So it's not forcing it, it's just like the back side creates all this space that then the front soft side can unfurl into it. And then open the hands down. Good, step back to plank. Lower onto your belly. Cobra pose as you inhale. Elbows can be as bent as they need to be here. If you close your eyes while you're in your cobra and you send a really subtle internal wave up the front of the spine, starting with the sacrum, it might give you a little bit more freedom in the neck. And then downward facing dog. Find your roots. Once you have that established and you're nice and stable, left leg comes up. What feels good? It's your leg, it's your hip joint. What would feel good? And then knee to chest, plank. The bending of that left knee kind of helps bring your pelvis where it needs to go to kind of slide your sit bones into the top of the back of the thighs. Making sense? So we're in a plank, shoulders over wrists, yeah. And then now we can step forward. Good. Drop your right heel down. So we're setting up the warrior position with the feet. And then you're feeling all the roots grow. Find that stability before you move. So the body feels safe coming up into warrior one. Lift the chest. Maybe there's a little bit of Just checking, am I free enough that the spine can move? So all that stability coming from below, coming from the feet, from the legs, so that this part of your body, the whole upper part of your body, doesn't have to work for the stability as much. So we can try to find a twist. Bringing the left hand onto the left hip, you're going to take that right elbow across. If it starts to feel tough, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. This is a challenge, right? But if it starts to feel like, ugh, go back to the feet. Start back at the feet. Back side of the body opens up. And the front side of the body like can snuggle right up and fill into it. Mm-hmm. And I'm intentionally not giving much guidance in terms of like, what are you doing with your breath here? Because if the stability's there and then the body's in a comfortable, safe place, the breath might just go on its own. You might not have to work so hard. Try a smile. Yeah. Because it's such a great thing to be able to move our bodies around. Take this time, take one more breath in, and then come back to your plank. Keeping that little bit of the bottom of the butt kind of sliding into the top of the back of the thighs and lower all the way down. Cobra pose. So find like your initial cobra, and then once you find that spot, elbows can be really bent. You could even be Sphinx pose with the forearms down. Then just send a little wave up your spine, a little ripple starting from the sacrum. And then child's pose. Right back to child's pose. And then we'll come up to a seat. Take just one seated pose before Shavasana. This went by so quickly. I feel like we could have done just felt down into our sit bones for like a full class. So you could take, we'll take Paschimottanasana. Let's take just a forward fold. Weave out the toes a couple times before we go into it. So happy. And then feel your roots in your sit bones. And so initially, I want you to feel the roots from the front of the sit bones, rooting down and back. And that might start to give you a sense of like that tipping forward of the pelvis, and then feel the roots from the inner sit bones dropping down and slightly out, freeing up the spine, freeing up the breath. Roots from the outer sit bones dropping down and in towards each other, freeing up the sides of the body a bit. And then those sit bones, those roots from the backs of the sit bones dropping down and then slightly forward in the direction that you're folding, giving the back side of the body the freedom to lengthen, broaden. So you feel the back side of the body kind of looming over you, like a big protective cover, like a turtle shell. And then the front, the soft underbelly can just kind of slither its way forward and out. Yeah, that's it. Follow your next breath to the bottom. And then like you're trying to pour your whole upper body into those roots. Roll yourself up, from the bottom to the top. And we'll lie back for Shavasana. Cover up. Cover your eyes, whatever you need to do to make this feel safer. And then let it all drop back. All your body weight drop back. Let your skin drop back. Let your bones kind of snuggle into the inside of the back body. You might even imagine your breath could settle into the backside of the body as if it had weight. Like leaves sinking into the bottom of a pool. Notice your breath. And then hug the knees and roll to either side. Press up to a seat. Maybe your body already intuitively knows how to establish itself here. Bring your hands to the chest, bring your palms together if you like. Let's close out practice. Thank you so much.